love to be listening to that conversation. It is a mess. We got to get it together. You can imagine what happened the first weekend of Mardi Gras.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency. Auto, home, flood, business, 504-556-0809. Dave Miette, INSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
CNC Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, CNC provides patient-centered care for your entire family. CNC Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to cover all the home teams for you, but there's a lot to cover this time of year. Saints getting ready for free agency and also, again, the draft. We'll talk about the new coaching staff on the offensive side, new offensive coordinator. Also, again, we'll talk about the Pelicans. Again, the 27-game sprint to the end of the season. Seeding, obviously, again, on the line for the Pels. And then, of course, LSU, Tulane, UNO, basketball, football, and baseball, with the exception if we have the football with UNO. If we have time, we'll talk soccer championships and Super Bowl. So a lot to get into, and two are really the very best we have in the state that breaks it down for us. Richie Mills of WGNO Channel 26 Sports and Lenny Vangilder of CrescentCitySports.com. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. As always, we'd like to start off letting you tell our folks a little bit about what's going on at your respective stations and publications. Why don't you start it off for us, Richie?
Well, you can catch our sports content weeknights, WGNO News at 6 and 10. You can catch me on weekends. That's Saturdays at 6 and 10, Sundays at 5 and 10. Of course, on Friday nights at 10:30 on NOLA 38, the CW, we have the WGNO Sports Zone. And again, we are doing Friday night sports, kind of a brainchild of Friday Night Football. You can catch that at 11 p.m. on NOLA 38, the CW. The replays at midnight on WGNO. It allows us to highlight, high school soccer state championships that are going on right now, sports like basketball playoffs. They just hit the postseason, the boys' side, and then other things too, wrestling, dancing, everything involving high school sports.
Yeah, y'all do a great job. Actually, Crescent City Sports does a great job as well when it comes to high school athletics. Lenny, tell us all about your great publication.
Well, we share Ed Daniels with Richie, first of all, which is great. And his content is always a must read. Yes. But of course, like Richie said, just our bread and butter is really the high school sports scene, and with so much going on right now with the basketball playoffs, with the soccer playoffs, baseball getting started this week. There's so many places we have live and free streaming coverage throughout the year. Going back to when we originated over a decade ago, we've done this now over 500 times. So we've, it's a labor of love for Ken Trahan, Jude Young, and me, and the rest of our team at Crescent City Sports. Encourage you to check it out. Check us out on social media. We have a main account, and if you're on all about high school sports, we have a separate account just for high school sports as well. So check it all out at Crescent City Sports.
I'm going to go a little bit off script here, but I got to ask because, again, it seems like, again, New Orleans tends to dominate soccer every single year. Going back to when I was in high school back in the late 70s, right? Talk about this edition. Both of you guys obviously know a lot about what's going on with the soccer championship. Newman just won yesterday, and up in Hammond, a lot of New Orleans. What is it? 7 total schools from New Orleans?
I feel like it's so many.
Right.
But I mean, Newman, the girls program, they won 4 of their last 5 yesterday, second in a row, second under head coach Doug Freeze. I think they've won 7 of the last 11 Division IV soccer championships. Just on the girls' side,
Right.
the boys were eliminated in the semifinals, but you have schools like Ben Franklin, Riverdale, Jesuit, St. Paul's, all of these programs that were in the semifinals ultimately, and they're always in the picture in Hammond. Tonight we have the Willow School, who's undefeated. That's something that, you know, rarely happens. Can they finish the job? And if they do, that's back-to-back state championships for them. And then, of course, Jesuit, Catholic, the big main event Saturday night that everyone's looking forward to. But again, there's so many prized soccer programs in this area that no one knows about until this time of the year, when you count on your finger, oh, there is 7 that's currently in contention for state titles.
Well, I think this is just a dominant area for it. It starts the youth programs down, you know, down here with what they've done at, you know, Lafreniere and the fire program and all of that. It starts at the grassroots, and you see it not just on the South Shore, particularly on the North Shore. There's a lot of great programs on the North Shore as well. Whether it's, you know, St. Paul's not there this year, but you know, or St. Scholastica, or it's Mandeville, or it's North Shore, it's Lake Shore. Just across the, you know, across that side of the lake, it's a strong hotbed for soccer, along with the South Shore.
Right, and the same thing with wrestling too, right? I mean, when you talk about the New Orleans area.
No doubt, the I-10 corridor, in particular, is really where, and that's where the schools are. But obviously, you look at the New Orleans area and what the, you know, what's been produced out of this area. Division I. I couldn't tell you the last time the championship left the Division I area, whether it was, you know, it's Jesuit the last 2 years, or Holy Cross, or Brother Martin, or St. Paul's, or you know, that's dominant. And then, you know, Archbishop Rummel, Archbishop Shaw, De La Salle, John Curtis, and the, you know, in the lower levels have all excelled as well.
Channel 26 and Crescent Sports, again, cover everything, but they do high school like nobody else. So, again, make sure you're tuning in to Channel 26 and, of course, checking out CrescentCitySports.com for everything you need to know about what's happening with high school sports, not just here in New Orleans, but across Louisiana as well. All right, guys, let's start with Saints. And I'm doing it. Training camp in Irvine. I said this last week. I have no issue with it as long as it's once, maybe every few years, get away. I can understand again why they want to do this. First of all, it's the reconstruction of what's going on the campus with the cafeteria, etc. But I think this could be a good thing for this team to sequester them and get them away from New Orleans. What's your take?
Well, I mean, you can say it's the cafeteria, the facility renovations. I think this is more of a focus move, given the fact that you're leaving the area, you're leaving any distraction possible surrounding the team during training camp. I love the fan aspect of training camp, but again, it kind of takes away from the focus of, I think, what you're trying to accomplish. And when you think of the last 3 years, a playoff drought, the changes you've made in the coaching staff, you truly need to dedicate all you possibly can to this offseason and really give your guys a chance to focus in on, you know, the game plan, get everything ready so that when you hit week 1, there's no struggles against a Tennessee team. There's no lapses offensively, there's no miscommunication. So again, you can label this renovations because the cafeteria, you can go without a cafeteria, I think.
Some worry about, some think they worry about a little bit about maybe against the Boo Birds coming out with Derek Carr, etc. Whatever it is, it's a new season. People are going to give him a chance. What about your publication? How does that affect someone, a publication like CrescentCitySports.com? Are you guys sending someone to California? Is it going to be a situation where it makes it a little bit more difficult now for a publication like yours to be able to cover the Saints?
To be determined. Okay. We'll see. But of course it does. I mean, that's something that now everybody in town has got a budget for, because you've got to spend probably a month out there. You know, that projections have been, okay, training camp goes on, you're probably going to play the first 2 games out on the West Coast and come back here for preseason game 3, and then you've got 9 regular season games at home. But I get the idea of you're everything that you've got to house under that roof. You know, the food and beverage part, that's obviously a huge part of that. So I get it. Could you keep it in Louisiana somewhere and do it? Maybe, but again, you need to be able to get those practices in. It's different than what it used to be when the last time it was still around here and not at the Saints facility. You were doing 2-a-days and, you know, those kind of things. And I mean, look, you still got renovations going on. You know, yeah, you can get on a bus and go to the Superdome. You still got renovations going on. They're trying to get everything ready for the Super Bowl next February, the last stage of them. Exactly when is that facility going to be available? You know, who knows? They've got to get it all finished this year, and you got to get it finished before the preseason starts.
Let's talk a little bit about Dennis Allen, who was on the NFL Network podcast with Steve Weich and James Palmer. There were some interesting things he had to say about, again, the search for an offensive coordinator. They interviewed over a dozen candidates. He did consult Derek Carr on again, the candidates, and of course came up with Clint Kubiak, who he thought was the best fit. He said he's known them, the family, for 20 to 30 years, going back to Texas A&M. He loves the system. He thinks it's a quarterback-friendly system. Gives the players a chance to be successful. What are your thoughts about Kubiak? What are your thoughts about the system? And do we really know the system? Is it the San Francisco system? Is it the Gary Kubiak system? Is it going to be, again, a morphing of both systems?
I think it's going to be a morphing of both. I think it's what Kubiak could bring to the table and then the exposure to what the 49ers successfully did. If you're Derek Carr, you're thrilled seeing what Brock Purdy did last year. Not that he's going to be an MVP consideration, but, you know, it's a system where you can simply utilize all of the possible weapons that you have. I believe when we talked about this last time, it's going to be a matter of how do the Saints' weapons compare to the 49ers' weapons, and how does that impact, I guess, the offseason additions that you might not have needed before, but Kubiak wants. So again, I think when you look at the 49ers system, though, I mean, you had gadget guys like Deebo Samuel. The Saints have Taysom Hill. We have Alvin Kamara here, who really has seen his worst statistical year in the NFL this past year, and Pete Carmichael's last year. So again, if you're Alvin Kamara, you're thrilled to see Christian McCaffrey lead the entire NFL in rushing, and then on top of that have 560 yards receiving. So again, I think Alvin Kamara benefits from this. I just think that the Saints needed something brand new, and I think when you saw recently what the 49ers have done in a run to the Super Bowl, which the Saints have been ultimately aiming for, but need to maybe focus more on the playoffs, I mean, you are excited because it's new, it's innovative, it seems simple, and it seems to utilize everyone across the board.
Yeah, it does.
There's a lot of things that obviously we're going to come to find out here over the next 7 months until toe meets leather for real in September. But yeah, obviously there's been a great influence in terms of the offensive coaching staff, where Kubiak's been obviously having to give some say-so, as opposed to saying, here are the guys that you're going to work with as offensive assistants, now go do your job. Obviously, with so many changes there, that's been molded in a way that he wants. What is it going to end up looking like? Is it going to be what we saw from Clint and his dad doing in different places? Is it going to be more the Shanahan type of thing? That remains to be seen. I think we'll figure it out. Then no one's going to tell you that, because they want to keep their cards close to the vest, especially before game one, right? The thing I'm going to be interested in seeing going forward, the next step in all of this, is obviously going to be player acquisition. And not that the Saints are sitting there so cap friendly they go sign whoever they want, but obviously you know they're going to bring some guys in, they're going to let some guys go.
Right.
How much on the offensive side does Kubiak have in terms of not personnel control, but personnel input in all of this? You would think he's got to have some. You got to be able to run a system.
Right.
Sure. So that, I'm not saying that's going to tell you a lot, but it's going to be interesting to see just how much his fingerprints are on shaping the personnel side of the Saints offense.
And are you pointing more to the offensive line? Because I think, again, when you look at the skill position players, they kind of fit what San Francisco did, what the Texans did back again with his dad being the head coach there. The question is, if you're going to do a zone blocking scheme, do you need more athletic linemen? And to me, that's going to be the key going into this offseason. You know, when they take a look at their offensive line, do they have the type of players with the skill set to play that zone blocking scheme?
You may have to make a couple of moves there, and obviously you've got an extended period of time to do this. And if you're good enough to play in the league, then obviously you should be good enough to play in different types of schemes along the way. But I think from an acquisition perspective, if you're making moves, then I think you're bringing in guys who have played in a scheme like that, as opposed to trying to transfer someone in the scheme. And look, like we've seen, I mean, the offensive line was, I think, clearly the biggest disappointment of 2023 as we saw it. But, and you know, these guys who were there maybe in some cases they forgot how to play. I don't know. see Trevor Penning perhaps. I don't know, but still, these guys were brought in with some great ability. And sometimes you've got busts out there, but in a lot of cases, these guys were good enough to be Pro Bowl players, Pro Bowl alternates, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden last year, everything just kind of, I don't want to say fell apart, but it certainly dropped off significantly in terms of the quality of play on the offensive line. So, but obviously, I think the pieces that you see added in there going forward are going to be guys that have a background in what it is that Kubiak wants to do.
I would agree. Richie, I'm of the opinion they're going to have to take a hard look at the offensive line and the body type of their players, because Williams for the 49ers is a big tackle, right. but the rest of their offensive line are very, very athletic. Is that something that's, with not a lot of draft picks, with not a lot of money, how do you do that? Is a question. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But same question for you. How do you think this offense is going to be is going to look? How do you think, from a player standpoint, it will look, etc.?
I think 14 overall is going to give you a good indication of the direction they want to go. I personally believe offensive line, and when you think about Trent Williams, yeah, he's big. It's a big boy, but he can still move around.
Yes,
still very athletic. I think you have to look at the Saints offensive line for what it is right now. Is Ryan Ramczyk going to be there? Is James Hurst as versatile as we thought, as athletic to fit in the system under Kubiak? You moved Andres Pete out of position last year, and he maybe played the best football that we've seen. So is that something you stick to? In free agency, do you retain guys like Max Garcia? Do you keep Cam Irving? But I ultimately think to rebuild it, I think they look into the draft. They look into the free agency market. But I think the draft approach for this matter there's no problem with finding diamonds in the rough, and it's worked out for them. They've also missed on that in the past. Sure. You've seen what they've given up for Trevor Penning. You see Nick Saldiveri, who we didn't see much of this year. I think best available is not a bad idea. But I also think that, yes, you need to free up the offensive line, because essentially when you look at the offense and you label Alvin Kamara as one of your top weapons, you need to give him an opportunity to show that he is just that. The offensive line is the key to doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I think offensive, defensive linemen are again, should be the priority for this team in both free agency and the draft. Your thoughts, Lenny?
Well, let's start with this at 14. Even though it's never happened, this may finally be the year to think about if someone is interested enough to try to trade back. You can use the additional picks. You've got to find a way to, A, get younger, because you're one of the two oldest teams in the league last year.
Right.
B, find a way to get guys on rookie deals, and the more picks you have, then you've got the opportunity to do that as well. If you stay at 14, if you look at some of the projections that are out there to keep moving quarterbacks up, to keep moving wide receivers up, I think you've got a chance to get a really good lineman, if you want one, at 14, if that's clearly the direction that you want to go. If you can move back and, pick up an extra couple of picks along the way, move back further into the middle of the round. I'm not saying go all the way to the bottom, but, maybe you get into the late teens or around 20, something like that. Then go for it and see what else you can get. You've got to find a way, from a cap perspective to, get yourself more in line and get this team younger. You look at some of the cap, numbers out there, and obviously the Saints are again last, and as you look into the season. But maybe, you look individual contract by contract. You brought up James Hurst. He may be the most vulnerable guy out there in terms of somebody who could be expendable. He's up in age and could be a huge cap savings if you did move on from him. Not to say that you want to, because obviously he was a guy that I think was probably a bit of a surprise the last 2 years. But can you afford to hang on to him as well? Or, exactly what are the things you're going to do, to eliminate this $80+ million that you've got to get down to get under the cap by the start of the league year?
Well, and again, the strength of this draft, they say, is in the middle rounds, the third and fourth rounds. The Saints don't have any picks in the third and fourth rounds, to your point. So again, they may have to do some maneuvering. I said this yesterday on the radio show. I could see them going into next year's draft, grabbing picks there to try to get back into this draft to be able to get some of the players they're going to need to be able to augment this roster. The coaching staff. Dennis Allen says he likes the diversity of the coaching staff. The young, progressive coaches and the mixture of veteran coaches. Your thoughts on what he's done there?
Well, the veteran coaches are tenured, obviously, but what's most important here is you see success at specific positions, like with Derek Foster, who was with Austin Eckler in Los Angeles. You see how that can benefit your offense. But there is familiarity with Kubiak, with Kubiak's, I guess, offensive ideals, and then there's familiarity with Derek Carr. And I think what I like about this staff and I like about Kubiak, again, is the perspective that they can bring to a Saints team. You know, again, they've had the same personnel in place ultimately in main positions for 15 plus years. So again, I think that new perspective of seeing what the Saints have right now, how it can change, I think that kind of factors into what we just talked about with, you know, the offensive line. I think having a fresh, innovative, yet experienced perspective can truly help you reconstruct this roster in a manner where they can compete right now.
Yeah, to Richie's point, it's, you know, it's interesting to see. You got so many new faces in here where for so many years this was a, you know, a coaching staff that there would be some fine-tuning along the way and some things would happen, but you had a lot of those core guys, you know, under Sean Payton for so many years. And, you know, obviously when you promoted Dennis Allen, that was part of it. It's like, okay, let's try to, you know, keep this thing together. Well, finally after 2 years you realize, especially on the offensive side, okay, things have got to change. And, you know, the commitment to move on and then go in and just reconstruct this thing almost from the ground up, you know, it's intriguing. It's going to be interesting to see how this group melds together to be able to do the types of things. No one is saying, you know, that Clint Kubiak's going to come in here and, you know, have an offense is going to rival the best days of Sean Payton and Drew Brees. But it's obviously got to be, you know, a big step up from what you had a year ago as well.
Absolutely. And look, let's face it. This is Allen's coaching staff now. Last year, he was able to go in and change the entire defensive staff out. This year, he changed the offensive staff out there, changed the offensive staff out. So, to me, there are no more excuses. You got your staff. You got to go now and win. Got to get back in the playoffs.
Right. The test is now. I mean, unfortunately, they had one of the easiest schedules in the NFL this past year, and they failed to make the playoffs. There are no excuses anymore because the schedule you're about to play is a little bit tougher than that. And then, of course, there's so much on the line. It's just a matter of seeing how it's all going to work. There's so many uncertainties right now, but it certainly is a lot of excitement to talk about.
No doubt about it. I'll tell you what, we'll take a break here. I want to move on because I want to get to, we have so much to get to this afternoon. We'll talk Pelicans next. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Richie Mills on Channel 26 Sports. Also, Lenny Vangilder, CrescentCitySports.com are our guest. I'm Eric Asher. I'm your host. Our underwriter. Here from our underwriters. We'll be right back. We'll jump to some Pels. Stay tuned.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Richie Mills and Lenny Vangilder are our guests today. We turn our attention to the Pelicans. 27-game sprint to the finish now. The Pels, again, taking on Houston tonight in the Smoothie King Center. They'll play Miami on Friday, and then they're Chicago on Sundays for the 3-game homestand coming back here. When you look at where they are now, with this 27 games left in the season, and I talked about this yesterday on the radio show, you're setting goals for the last 27. To me, 50 wins, which is attainable, winning the Southwest Division, and getting in the top 6 have to be, again, the priority for this team. When you look at this team right now, as it is built, Are you confident that can happen?
I am. There's just so many things you have to see. Again, people need to remember, we have not seen this group make it this far and to this point in the season. They've had health issues, availability issues. I mean, this is new for all of us. When you look at their schedule, there's 27 games. I did the math. There's 13 playoff contenders. Those, in my eyes, are teams 7th or above in their respective divisions. They're 10-12 this year against playoff contenders, 7th or above in their respective divisions. They're 3-7, I believe, in the new year against those teams. 50 is attainable. It's very attainable. This group is playing really well right now, and I think that given, the fact that they're going to have to win a lot of these games against these playoff contenders now to show that they are ready for the playoffs, because you want to avoid the play-in. The play-in is a step back in everyone's opinion.
Yes.
The playoffs are what ultimately shows progress, but we have not seen this team make it to this point because they haven't been healthy.
Agree. You need to be out of the play-in, get to 6. Besides the fact it favors home versus road. The other thing that I noticed, and I sat in for you on radio a couple weeks ago, we got into this. You got more games against the East than you do against the West down the stretch.
You do.
And I would tell you that, I mean, obviously they're probably, they're close to a 500 team against the West, and they've played well against the East, and the East is obviously not as good as the West. The West is deeper, and the records show that. I mean, the Pelicans are, sitting there where they are. You look down 7, 8, 9, 10. You compare 7, 8, 9, 10 in the East, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the West. It's a big difference, and you see just those types of teams. Your top teams in the East, certainly they're very good on a night in, night out basis. But as you get deeper into the league, that's where you've got a chance to make some hay, and that's where I think the Pelicans have a chance to make some hay. When you just based on how the schedule lays out for you down the stretch. Obviously, look, we know Mardi Gras, you're gone, and then you had the All-Star break that fell behind it. Some years it works out that Mardi Gras weekend is All-Star break weekend, and that doesn't. So you really haven't played. What did they play? 2 home games in the last 3 weeks. That's it. So now you're coming back here with 3 in a row at home here in a 4-day span. A chance to get a run started here in the sprint to the finish.
33-22, 11 games over 500. They're in 6th place, but really tied with the Suns for 5th place. The Suns have the 1-0 lead on them in their series right now. We'll see how that plays out on the back end of this season. The encouraging thing is Zion looking like he's in shape. We're seeing him more explosive. We're seeing him playing off-the-ball defense, blocking shots. You're seeing him run up and down the court, which, again, at times he didn't do. To me, again, how well he plays during this stretch and the playoffs will be the key on how far they can go.
He's their most talented player, and I think early in the season when people were talking about his conditioning, he needed game reps. He's gotten game reps. I think they've done a great job of balancing load management, which I hate calling it that, but for a player that does what he does, he needs that. He needs that occasional game off to certainly help, given his injury history, the explosion, how much he relies on his legs. He's had a lot of lower body injuries. I think the load management has certainly helped that. But he's a generational talent, and I think he's starting to show that when available, when healthy, he can continue to be that, while also being a point guard in a sense for this team and a leader that they can count on down the stretch.
Your thoughts on Zion and how he's performed so far?
I think certainly the level of play has stepped up since he started leading the offense a little bit more. And it's point forward, whatever you want to call it. Look, basketball's positionless now. Okay, let's face it. I mean, everybody wants, this is a point guard. This is a 2. No, there's 5 players on the floor, and it's positionless basketball. That is what the game has evolved. The game that you and I grew up watching isn't anymore.
Agreed.
Okay, it's not that. Him to initiate the offense, I think, gets him more involved, gets him in position to be able to make plays that where if he's not, and somebody's got to, the offense has got to, try to find him to get him engaged. That becomes a little bit more difficult. Now you've got to be able to, contend with him in a little bit different position, and I think it creates mismatches out there. How do you contend with that? Do you put a traditional point guard on him when he's out there? Do you put a bigger guy and get him away from the basket? Exactly how are you, as an opposing defense, trying to defend point Zion?
Right. Well, first of all, it changes where he is on the floor. He's not posting up, okay, where a lot of times, again, teams can double team him down low, try to keep him out, set that wall up as we've seen. So, again, from that standpoint, the concerning thing is, again, as we see us going into a 7-game series, as you get down, again, where teams really start to buckle down in this last 27 to 30 games of the season, do you need a traditional point guard to initiate the offense because of turnovers and the issues they've had closing out games?
It's kind of what they've been missing, but again, we haven't really seen this team make it this far, so we don't know if a traditional point guard is what they need. I just know that in a 7-game series with Zion Williamson, which again we have not seen, how much wear and tear does that put on the opposing defense? How much attention does that command from opposing defenses? Do you have the proper setup and personnel right now to benefit off of that? I think they do, but I don't think we'll truly know what this team needs moving forward until we see how far this group makes it.
And I think that's the plan, right? I mean, again, they're going to stick with this group to see how far they can go, and then they'll make changes, because, again, there are some that are nitpicking on, again, this starting lineup is one of the worst starting lineups in the NBA at this point. I am in agreement with both you guys. We need to see this team play together. This should have been last year, but it's this year now. So let's see what they have before you start breaking it up or making any changes to the lineup or to the team itself.
I feel like they had 20 different starting lineups last year. That was just based on injuries. This year, I think they've only had around 12, and I think that's just trying to tweak rotations, adjust to load management. But again, everyone's available, everyone's healthy. We do not know what this group is capable of until they do it.
They don't look like they're going to be part of the buyout market. They just signed Robinson Earl. If they were to go in the buy market, Lenny, I'll take you first. What do you think they would go after or need? Is it a big? Is it a point guard? If they're going to go out and do that, what position do you think it should be?
I think you certainly kick the tires on a point guard out there. I mean, obviously you saw what happened at the trade deadline, where there were some conversations with the Hawks regarding Murray, and never came to fruition. The other thing to remember is they are right up against the luxury tax.
Exactly.
And what is David Griffin, and more importantly, what is Gail Benson willing to do in regard to that? If you can go get somebody, if somebody is available to you, but you look at what happens in the buyout market. Where do these people go?
They go to contenders. They go to the big cities.
Exactly. Which we like to think this New Orleans is starting to be a contender, but it's still not a big city.
Not a top
people
four.
are not coming. I mean, it doesn't. It's never happened that way, right? So, while you'd love to think there would be a possibility it's going to happen, chances are it's not. 1.2 on the whole 7-game series thing. The other thing that, obviously it's been a few years since we've seen, that 2-3 years ago, but not just getting into a 7-game series, okay, but if you're doing things, there are going to be adjustments along the way. Teams are going to adjust to Zion at the point, or the different things. What are your counter adjustments going to be for that? We're going to learn a lot about Willie Green, the coach, in that. Again, now look, he did a great job when he got them into the playoffs, out of the play and into the playoffs against the Suns. But what are you going to do? Whoever it's going to be this time around, hopefully that's the case. We're having this conversation, in a couple of months with the playoffs getting ready to start, that you're getting ready for a best-of-7 series against somebody. But how are you playing the adjustment game, assuming this is the roster as you see it now that's going to be out there in the first round of the playoffs? Anything you'd like to add?
Oh, he covered everything.
Let's move on to college football playoff, new format, 5+7. And I want to get you guys' thoughts on the format. Now, again, we heard yesterday that 5x7 might be junked because they may go to 14 or 16 teams. I had Les Cease of CrescentCitySports.com on the radio show yesterday, and we differ on our opinion. See, me, I've always been one to say more the merrier. I'll take 14. I'll take 16 teams. It's worked in the subdivision. It works in other sports. Why not make it work in football? If somehow you can allow that to coexist with the bowl games. I think the bowl games are so important, not just to, again, college football, but also to the cities that host these bowl games. I mean, this is the big economic impact. What are your thoughts on the format? And would you like to see it expanded to 16 teams?
I'd like to see it expanded to 24. The FCS, like you just mentioned, the Southeastern Nickels of the world, they've been playing 24 for years, and it's worked out perfect. You have everything that encompasses what you want to see in college football. You have the dominance making it to the championships. You have the upsets along the way. The bowl games can adapt in regards to you have 24 teams. You got all these games. You can title them bowl games if you want to, but again, the more the merrier, because teams are going to get left out. With this new format, I believe it's favorable to more at-large bids, which is sort of a blessing in disguise for the group of 5 schools who have always kind of had that automatic into the New Year's 6. Because when you look at this year, Liberty went undefeated, played the worst schedule in the entire National Football League, NCAA, but then they get floored by Oregon. I think this sort of allows you to avoid that. Say Tulane does make it. Say Tulane finishes the regular season maybe top 10, hypothetically speaking.
Right, sure.
This avoids them playing number 1, the top seed, and it ultimately gets them a more fair advantage of competing in the college football playoff. But personally, 24, it's proven that it can work, and I think that that's a model that the NCAA needs to sort of look at and be like, we've had this all along. We see how it works. We just need to make it coexist with the bowl football games.
That's it. Now, again, you talked about FCS. A lot of times those are home games for again, the higher seeded team. In this case, you'd want to integrate it into the bowl games. Lenny, what's your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of I'm a big believer in the bowl system. Okay,
Me too.
And getting the quarterfinal and semifinal games with the first round games on campus is a great compromise. But I think, at the end of the day, the almighty dollar is going to rule here, okay? And that's part of why I think you're looking. There's a number of reasons I think you're looking at 14 or 16 becoming a possibility. One is those additional potential games in the first round on campuses. The other thing that, don't discount in all of this whole thing could get blown up in a couple of years down the road. The SEC and the Big Ten just secede from the NCAA, say, you know what, we're having our own championship. Good luck to the rest of y'all. We're going to have, we're going to take, because there were one of the conversations that's happened in all of this potential for expansion is the SEC and Big Ten want 4 guaranteed spots each. Each. That's 8 teams. I understand they're good, but you don't see that in the NCAA basketball tournament. You get them. If you're the best team, fine, you're going to get them. Now, I guess the concern becomes if we're taking in all these teams and we all start beating each other up, are we going to shut ourselves out? But I think at the end of the day, common sense prevails, okay? You look at, say this year, I mean, you look at this year, with the SEC. You ended up with, 4 or 5 teams in the top 12?
Yeah.
So, LSU was just on the outside of that. So, yeah, granted, you're adding Texas, Oklahoma next year, but look, it comes down to the almighty dollar in all of this. Where's the money going to come from?
Right.
Supposedly ESPN's offered this $1.3 billion a year for the rights to this playoff, which again they've got the right to potentially, farm some of that out to other media outlets if they so choose. But are they going to go higher? What if they add 2 more teams? What if they add 4 more teams? What if they add another round? Are they going to come up with more money? I think that's, you're seeing that in a lot of places out here, whether it's, kind of how the regional sports networks have fallen apart and things like that. There's only so much money out there. And now with NIL, there's even less money out there in the marketplace because now, the student athletes are getting their piece of the pie.
Well, you also, again, have the internet-based ability to be able to show these games as well, like what we're seeing with Major League Soccer and Apple, okay, what they just did. So again, a lot of this won't be on network TV, but I saw a little smile out of your face when he said ESPN, because obviously part of Disney, ABC, you guys got the SEC this year.
Right, correct, and we'll have specials, I feel like, every Saturday. So again, the more football, the merrier. And given how the SEC shaped up and how LSU looks, I mean, it's all exciting.
I think it takes care of itself. Okay, I mean, you don't need guaranteed spots here. I mean, for these, I think naturally you're going to see those top teams are going to be seated high. It doesn't, I think the conference is going to beat each other up a little bit now when you start talking about the Big Ten and the SEC. But I think the cream will rise to the top there. Let's talk. Let's talk LSU basketball and what happened last night. And let's talk about McMahon, because I'll be honest with you, I wasn't real impressed last year. You know, winning 2 conference games. Now, I know everybody understands, again, what he was left with the defections after Will Wade, the penalties, everything else. But they're 14-12 now. They're 6-7. They're 10th in the SEC. But you got Ole Miss and A&M have the same record, okay, as of right now. They beat the 11th ranked team in the nation in South Carolina on Saturday. They beat the 17th ranked team in the nation, Kentucky, last night, 75-74. And they had their toughest stretch of the season during these last few games, almost beating Florida, okay, but before the South Carolina win. And now they have Mississippi State, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, and Missouri. Combined, those teams are 15-45 in the SEC. LSU is currently 4-7 in quad games. Look, I don't think Tulane's going anywhere. I don't think UNO's going anywhere this year, unfortunately, in terms of college basketball, unless UNO may not even make their tournament. Right? Tulane
they're last right now.
Right. Okay, they're last right now. Are we seeing an opportunity for this team to maybe make a little bit ahead going into the SEC tournament, or is this like a blip on the radar screen here? They seem to be getting better.
Right. And it's because I think Matt McMahon has now figured out a rotation that works, a rotation that can go down double digits and then fight back against top-tier competition. I think and there's so many angles you can attack this from. Tyrell Ward has emerged, who hit the game winner last night. He's emerged as an efficient scorer for this team. He led them in scoring last night. He was their leading scorer in their win over South Carolina. Another thing you can look at, Jalen Cook hasn't played the last 2 games. Those are shots that you're taking away from guys like Tyrell Ward, who really didn't see these minutes with Jalen Cook in the lineup. So when Cook does come back, ultimately, if you're Matt McMahon, you just sort of look at your lineup and say, do I dedicate more to Ward and maybe sprinkle some Cook in? Because Cook, he's a sensational talent, I think. But he hasn't really fit well with this team. So again, when you look at the rotation that's been on the floor, this is maybe the one, if you're Matt McMahon, you roll with moving forward, because last year's team was weird because that was just a patch job. I felt like Murray State had taken the court and just wore LSU jerseys. So again, I think you ignore what happened last year, because given all the infractions he had to come over, lack of scholarships, and then to still somewhat be competitive, that was an accomplishment in itself. But I think now you see a rotation that works and can compete with the tops in the SEC. Can they make a run? Absolutely. As far as the other contenders in the area, I think it's just circumstances that they've had to deal with. But I think LSU might be your best bet at March basketball.
Yeah. Give me your thoughts on LSU.
Well, you mentioned they got 5 games left. Mississippi State's probably the toughest of those 5 games, at least on paper. They're a team that's projected to be in the tournament right now. You go 4-1 in those 5, and you get to 10-8 in the league, and they get you 18 overall, and depending on what you do in the conference tournament, if you could find a way to get to the semifinals, that maybe get you to 20. I mean, look, it's not 20 wins get you in anymore. It's not. It's not like those days are gone. Okay. You'd be 20-14, I guess, in that scenario. Is that enough? I don't know. They're in the mid 80s in the net right now. That's not good enough. Look, after these last 2 games, I think the conversation certainly becomes, all right, this is a good enough team to make the NIT for sure. Depending on how they finish, I think they could certainly pop back up on that radar. But again, they only picked up 3 spots last night with that win over Kentucky. They've got to make a run here and see what happens. It becomes an eye test thing at that point, because they don't look at end of season anymore as a separate category. So it's it's an intriguing conversation that I think they can create by making a run here at the end of the year.
There is precedence here. I think it was last year or the year before, Texas A&M. They got really hot at the end of the regular season, made a run to the SEC championship game. They lost. Many thought, okay, they played well in the latter. They would get in that large bid. They did not. They made it to the NIT. I think this is sort of what could happen to this LSU team. Will they make it to the SEC championship? No one really knows. But again, there is precedence here where a team can get hot, make it that far, but still be left out. So don't get your hopes up.
Right, but no matter what, if it's the NIT or the NCAA, what a big step for the program considering where they were to where they are now. And again, maybe people looking at McMahon like I am a little bit different than maybe we were last year. Now look, he was given an opportunity with a longer contract to be able to rebuild this program, but and he's done it again a lot through the transfer portal. I mean, I don't know if that's sustainable, okay, but
well, that's what they're all doing now.
Right.
So it's not just him, yeah.
You know, but again, at the same time, I think a lot of people are looking at this team now and going, wait a minute now, maybe this team's got a little bit of a chance to maybe be a postseason in postseason.
I think the portal, how he's using it, is to be more of, I guess, to build foundational pieces. I mean, you got Louisiana guys across the roster,
right?
So again, showing these guys, these in-state recruits, there's a ton of talent in this state. Now, I'll go to bat for that another day. But again, it's showing the talent in state. You can come here, you can win, you can play high-level basketball. I think that's how he's built this program, and it's working out for him right now.
To your point, that's why, again, I don't get Tulane at 13-12 and 4-9 in the AAC, and UNO 8-19 and 3-11 in the Southland. I've always thought we have, and Lenny, you guys cover high school basketball. There is talent in this state.
No doubt. And I mean, but so many times, how many times have we seen it over the years that talent in the state leaves and goes elsewhere? And sometimes they get wise and they come back, whether it's, in the most recent case, I guess like a guy like Wright, who was at Vanderbilt and then transferred back, as a grad transfer. But, there's a young man at Ponchatoula. If you haven't seen Alan Graves play, he is tremendous. He was the MVP of the state tournament last year, led Ponchatoula to a state championship. He's going to Santa Clara, okay? Nothing against Santa Clara,
right.
and I'm sure if my guy Jack Benjamin's watching right now, he is saying definitely nothing against Santa Clara, okay? Because he's a Santa Clara grad and loves to promote that. But it's why is he not staying in state? And look, you got to, all of these schools need to build a wall around the state, but you got to go get it wherever you can get it from. Tulane has, I mean, they had Jalen Cook on their roster for 2 years. It was, from Walker with Jalen Cook and Brian Thomas. If you had a chance to see those two play together 5 years ago, of course, Brian Thomas concentrated on football, but he could have played both at LSU. If Brian Thomas wanted to play basketball, he would be one of McMahon's best players right now. He was that good. But it's, these guys are either, they're concentrating on other sports or they're getting away.
Right.
Even guys like, Solomon Washington, Dorian Finister, both played together at Carver. They got LSU offers their senior year. Dorian Finister's at Kansas State. They were just in the Final Four. Solomon Washington was dunking on LSU last year for Texas A&M. So again, there's talent everywhere. Could they come back? Absolutely.
Got to learn. Got to do like what Kelly's doing, and like what we're seeing Summerall do as well. You got to build a wall. You got to be, or again, at least when those guys want a second bite at the apple, maybe things didn't work out where they were previously, you got to get them to come back to the state and come back to your program. Do you want to talk about the LSU women? 22-4, 9-3, second in the SEC. They got Auburn coming up next. Your thoughts?
They always have a chance. I mean, with this lineup, they have a chance. I think Haley Van Lith is going to really determine how far this team's going to go if they're going to make a run at a repeat, because you've seen her start to become more of herself recently, sort of carve out her own identity in this lineup, which is really dominated by great player Angel Reese and Issa Morrow. I mean, Michaela Williams has been nothing short of phenomenal for this team, but I think Haley Van Lith is going to be the key to what this team accomplishes late in March, because she is a phenomenal scorer. She is, and she showed that at Louisville. How much can she shoulder moving forward when those names I just mentioned, might have an off night in a tournament game? I think she is ultimately the key, but they're playing well. They have some hiccups along the way, but you got to keep yourself humble at some point in this year. Long win streaks are great, but at the same time, you need to be realistic about what you can accomplish.
But they're obviously the way the NCAA women's tournament works, you need to be one of the top 16 to get a chance to host the first and second rounds.
Yes.
That's big. They're in position certainly to do that without collapsing down the stretch. You're probably looking at like a 2 or a 3 seed at this point, maybe a 4. But again, you want to get out of there, and then once you get on neutral floors, I think it's anybody's ball game, and obviously they showed that a year ago. Look, they played well down the stretch, but some things broke well for them as well. Right. Iowa beating South Carolina in the semi. If they'd have had to face South Carolina again, I'm not. It's same thing happened in the SEC tournament. South Carolina, they didn't have to face them there. So. Well, who knows how this may all shake out in terms of that. Auburn's going to be an interesting one to watch here, because Auburn, took them, to the woodshed up in the plains last month.
Right.
And you owe them one. And the way they're playing here of late, they may kind of return the favor a little bit.
Tulane women struggling. You did a story on Southeastern recently, right?
I did yesterday.
Talk about that.
So basically, Southeastern, they were the preseason #1 team. They started conference 1-4. They're currently 8-6. They dethroned McNeese, who at the time had the longest win streak in the country. Will Wade doing his magic over in Lake Charles, but they were at a 14-game win streak. Southeastern beat them on their home court. They had a 6-game win streak snap Monday night, overtime loss to Lamar, but still, they're playing great basketball. They have a Dutchtown High School product, Nick Caldwell, who's playing out of his mind right now. They are must-watch basketball, in my opinion. The Southern Conference is great basketball.
It is.
And Will Wade being in that conference now just makes it even more impressive. Nichols, up until over the weekend, was second place in the conference. They lost to McNeese. There was a 3-way tie for that spot. The chips did not fall in their favor after that loss. But again, Southeastern's great basketball. UNO, it's understandable why they're struggling. The league is very good. They also rely on the transfer portal a lot.
Yeah, and you look at some of the NCAA tournament projections out there. Let's say an LSU makes a run here and happens to sneak in. You could be looking at 4 teams from Louisiana in the tournament. La Tech's leading Conference USA. Southern is right there fighting at the top of the SWAC. Obviously, McNeese and what Will Wade has done there. McNeese could be an 11 or a 12 seed in the tournament. La Tech could be a 13 seed if they get it. That puts you in position to win maybe 1 or 2 games. You catch the right draw in the tournament. You're not going in as a 15 or a 16 seed playing one of the, 5 to 10 best teams in the country. You're playing somebody in that next tier, and maybe you got a chance to go pull off an upset or two and really make a name for yourself, like we've seen, the St. Peter's and the, some of these other schools in recent years. Florida Gulf Coast a few years back was FDU last year, beat Purdue, and so you get some great stories this time of year. Who's to say it couldn't be one of those schools this year?
Let's talk baseball. LSU won their weekend series against Central Arkansas and VMI. They've got Northern Illinois today. Tulane 3-1 after their weekend series against Northwestern. Again, they beat Nichols last night. They got Cal Irvine coming in town this weekend. UNO is 2-2. They beat Georgia State. They lost to Southern Miss last night. They got Evansville coming in town for a weekend series on the lakefront. And of course, UNO Tulane next Tuesday at Turchin. Let me take you first on this. State of college baseball here in Louisiana. How good can these teams be this year? The big teams, and you throw Southeastern in there, Nichols, throw them all in there.
It's solid. I mean, I think it's this is always a hotbed for college baseball. It came up on the broadcast Tuesday night of the Tulane-Nichols game. Louisiana's had 4 teams in the NCAA tournament each of the last 3 years. Last year, it was LSU, of course. You had Tulane winning the American. You had Nichols winning the Southland, and you had the Raging Cajuns were an at-large team a year ago. So you've got 4 teams in. I think you've always got the possibility of La Tech has been in that mix recently. Whoever wins the SWAC, if that's either Southern or Grambling. So you've got the potential for half the teams in Louisiana, if it breaks right, to make the NCAA tournament. Tulane, I think, is better than they were a year ago. You're looking at 4 games in, but you see some signs out there, especially in some key spots. And the guy who was, huge over the weekend, local product, Holy Cross grad, Chandler Welch, 5 shutout innings, 10 strikeouts against Northwestern. And after getting shut down the night before, for him to come out and do that on Saturday, the old saying in baseball, what momentum is your next day starting pitcher. He went out and set the tone very quickly on Saturday and kind of turned that series around in Tulane's favor.
Your thoughts? Obviously, LSU stacked, but LSU and the rest of the state schools, throw something out there again about some of the ones that you like.
So Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz are not walking through that door. They're going to have to win in different ways this year. You're not going to have an overpowering #1 overall pick taking the mound every year. I like LSU's depth. I think St. Paul's product, Cade Anderson, showed, in their game against Central Arkansas, played Monday at 2 o'clock, that, he can be a valuable option out of the bullpen for them in that win over Central Arkansas. In regards to the Southland Conference, in a sense, that will be one in Hammond, Louisiana, later in the year. So no matter what happens, but I think Nichols, ultimately, you have to like what they have a great rotation, one of the top arms in the country, a kid from Santa Monica named Jacob Myers. I mean, he gave Alabama fits in the Tuscaloosa Regional. I love Tulane. I think the depth on the pitching staff is a little bit more than what they had. I think they're a little bit more comfortable, too. I mean, Connor Rasmussen, the East Carolina transfer, I mean, he jumped in there and had a phenomenal series at the plate. And so I think them beating Nichols also, I told someone over the weekend, I said, Nichols is going to be trouble on a Tuesday night, but again, it's going to be a good, measuring stick of where this program truly is, because that is a regional contender right there. So again, the state of Louisiana college baseball is great. It's toss-up right now. They're going to beat each other up, but again, ultimately, it's going to be exciting.
He mentioned Jacob Myers. He could beat anybody in America. If Nichols wins the Southland, if they show up in your regional as a 4 seed, look out, because you got a chance to get knocked off in the first round.
Guys, I do want to, I can't believe it's the end of the show. We were talking Tulane LSU football, but I do want to touch on it quickly. First overall class for Tulane in the American Athletic Conference, according to 24/7 Sports. LSU is the number 4 class in the 2024 class, number 1 right now in 2025. Minute and a half each one of you, your thoughts on what they did in the offseason, both Tulane and LSU.
So LSU's recruiting class, I looked at it, you skim through it. It's a lot of offensive linemen, defensive backs, and then wide receivers out of the transfer portal. I think those are 3 areas they needed to address. I think the defensive staff additions are what they truly needed. Tulane, on paper, they look phenomenal. Can that translate to the football field? I think this spring we'll see what it all looks like, the 4 and 5 stars, how they mix together. But again, on paper, you have to be excited.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see those 4 and 5 stars in the portal. Again, they couldn't, they weren't getting on the field enough where they were, with the possible exception of the wide receiver from USC. But he was out there. But Thompson, I'll be interested to watch in spring the battle at quarterback between Thompson and Horton, because that's one of those spots. LSU, you touched on it there. I mean, 2024, great. Okay, they had that. 2025, it's going to be 10 months before that group puts pen to paper.
Right.
But that looks like that has a chance to really be, a game-changing class for Brian Kelly, the way it is starting to develop. And you know what happens with these guys. They all start getting those other guys that they're with at camps and things like that, and try to bring them along on their coattails. It's got a chance to really be something special if all of those guys make it to campus in a couple of years.
And to your point, that the 2025 class, the big guys are recruiting other recruits to come to LSU, right?
Yep. It's the way it works these days.
Right.
It's that those are, you can have all of those people you want, and you got 70, 80 people on some of these staffs and football offices now, but it's those young men, or in the case of the women's sports, those young ladies who are the ones who are going out and getting, their counterparts out there from around the country, to get them to try to all team up together. It's a LeBron James effect, I guess. Getting that super team together.
Super team, right?
Could it change too? Absolutely. Commitments flip like pancakes at Waffle House. Not pancakes at Waffle House, what I just said. Yeah. But I mean, I pay attention to the guys like Harlan Berry who say, I'm enrolling early. That's happening. Okay, you were guaranteed to be in Baton Rouge.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. I will say this before we close. I'd like to get both of you guys' take on the hiring of Sumrall.
I don't think you could have scripted a better start for him.
Right.
I think, it's young, innovative. Right. It's this, mentality of I can go out and get anywhere. I have the support of the administration. I'm going to do what I possibly can to build all this up. He's had success everywhere, and that's not just a fluke.
Right.
I'm a big believer, and having been on that campus as long as I was.
Right.
Go get somebody who knows the place. And he spent time there. That's the first time in a half century Tulane's gone and hired a coach. When it didn't promote from within, they hired a coach who had experience there before and then came back.
Lenny, they gonna get these facilities built?
I think so. I mean, is it going to happen? Is it going to come out of the ground like magic? No, but you're going to get the things done that you need to get done and just continue to grow from there. But it's everything is trending in the right direction for so many things.
They need that bubble for next year for the Super Bowl.
Oh, no doubt about it. That's supposed to be ready to go for August by all accounts.
A good deal. Lenny Vangilder, CrescentCitySports.com, Richie Mills of WGNO Channel 26 Sports. Thanks for being on our panel today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Again, there's so many ways to catch our program. There's a QR code on your screen right now that'll take you either to my website, ericasher.com, or the WLAE-TV YouTube channel. Click on it with your phone, and of course, you'll never miss the program. Here's another way to never miss the program. Set your DVR to your favorite time slot. You'll never miss this show. So many ways to catch our program, whether it's on WLAE-TV, on the YouTube channel, on Pelican Sports Television. Set your DVR. You'll never miss the program. Catch me on the radio, 106.1. That's 4 to 6 weekdays. You can listen live at ericasher.com. Also, again, the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, our digital platforms. Anchor, Spotify is where you can find our podcast. And, of course, special thanks to the underwriters who make this show possible. Each and every one of those underwriters, we appreciate them. We appreciate your support of those underwriters that allow this show to continue. Also, we want to thank the staff here at WLAE-TV who produce our program. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Logan Grafia, also Danielle Wick, Alex Chacon, and also best director on the planet, that would be William Hill. I'm Eric Asher for Lenny Vangilder and Richie Mills. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.